strategies from a neurology dietitian, since many of you may have not been able to interact with one before. So some objectives of this, I'm going to keep this information light, easy to digest, since we're all eating. So I want to discuss some basics of nutrition, how poor diet can impact people with FSHD, and then how we can implement some healthy eating strategies as part of your daily routine. So you might be thinking, well, what is a registered dietitian? I've heard of a nutritionist, but I'm not exactly sure what's the difference. So registered dietitians, we are the food and nutrition experts on the interdisciplinary team. We play a key role to help shape food choices, improve nutritional status, and help treat people with acute and chronic diseases or conditions. We can practice in a variety of settings like hospital, outpatient clinics, like where I work, even sports nutrition facilities, private practice, food industry, community or public health settings, and as well as universities and research centers too. So just to kind of give you some key notes of what's the difference between someone who says they're a dietitian versus someone who says they are a nutritionist. Well, all registered dietitians are nutritionists, but not all nutritionists are registered dietitians. So a nutritionist is not a legally protected title. So anyone can call themselves a nutritionist. You can walk out tomorrow, call yourself a nutritionist if you'd like. But dietitians have gone through that special certification and education to be that food and nutrition expert. So you might have heard me say, well, that I'm a neurology dietitian. Well, what is that, right? So really, there's no formal definition yet for a neurology dietitian. However, my definition of that is that a registered dietitian who works directly with people who are at risk for or diagnosed with a neurological disease or condition. And a neurology dietitian can really help a wide variety of issues that someone may be experiencing. So this could be vitamin or mineral deficiencies, poor appetite, food and drug interactions, unintentional weight loss, diet education. If someone has a feeding tube, we can prescribe tube feeding management, therapeutic diets. We work with obesity, nutrition counseling, and people who also experience dysphagia or that difficulty chewing and swallowing. So just some basics of nutrition. So nutrition is the process of providing or obtaining the food necessary for our health and growth. It can refer to the branch of science as well that studies how foods impact health and metabolism. And the term diet refers to the kinds of foods that a person or animal or community even habitually eats. And so some of these terms might look familiar to most people, but I really want to kind of help bring everyone up to speed just to make sure that we're on the same page when we talk about these types of things. So some nutrients and other food component definitions for you. So a macronutrient, you might hear that term, also refers to a source of calories. So the macronutrients that come from foods provide a source of energy for our body to function and utilize in metabolism. So those three macronutrients are going to be those proteins, which come from your animal sources like fish, meat, poultry, and even dairy products like eggs, milk, and cheese, as well as plant-based products too, like beans, nuts, and seeds. We also have carbohydrates. That's going to be those fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and then dietary fats too, which we primarily get mostly from different oils, and then some fruits or vegetables too. Now, the next one is going to be micronutrients. So what a micronutrient is considered to be is a nutrient that provides little to no energy, so they don't provide us a significant source of calories, but they are essential building blocks to our metabolism. And when we think of micronutrients, we often kind of refer to them as those vitamin and mineral supplements that we see on the shelves, but you're going to find a wide variety of these micronutrients within those fruits, vegetables, and even protein sources like animal products and plant-based products too. So it's not just micronutrients are found in supplement bottles, they're also found in those whole foods that we eat every single day. And then there's going to be other food components that are beneficial to our health, like dietary fiber and phytonutrients too. And when I talk about nutrition, I like to refer to it as the fuel for our body to function. So if you kind of think about your body as a car, right? Our car can't go without gas. And then sometimes occasionally we need a little bit of a tune up and an oil change. So what we put into our bodies is kind of what we get out of it, right? And we know that a poor diet can lead to fatigue, right? And fatigue can play a significant role in receiving proper nutrition. So if someone is fatigued, you might have decreased appetite, just overall activity, and you're just not really interested in participating in meals at home. And when you experience these symptoms, it's really easy to turn to those comfort foods, right? And these foods are going to be high in calories and in fat and low in nutrient dense options like proteins, vitamins, and minerals. And when we don't consume enough of those nutrient dense foods, we're depriving our body of the fuel it needs to function, which will ultimately kind of play into that fatigue cycle even more. Poor diet can also lead to issues related to malnutrition and or obesity if we're consuming a lot of those high calorie, low nutrient dense foods. It can also contribute to GI dysfunction, so constipation. Typically high calorie diets are going to be more in processed foods, are going to be lower in dietary fiber, which helps promote gut health and bowel regularity. And now, when we think about nutrition, sometimes we only tend to focus on the foods that we're eating, but we really shouldn't forget that drinking enough fluids throughout the day is just as important, as it will provide our body with the hydration it needs to function properly. So this is kind of everyone's cue. Cheers. I'll do a little virtual cheers to take a sip of that water right now. Or if you have like some tea, coffee, etc. next to you. Dehydration can further exacerbate dry mouth if you experience that, maybe because of some medications you might be taking, poor appetite, constipation, as well as vitamin or mineral deficiencies, and possibly even increase your risk for developing bladder infection. So drink up. And then lastly, we know that just in general, a poor diet can lead to reduced quality of life and increased risk of other chronic diseases. So why should we care with FSHD, right? What kind of information is out there? Well, I'll kind of preface this by saying that there really isn't a lot of nutrition research out there in the area of FSHD. That's kind of a major area I would say is lacking within this area. So, but one of the things we do know is that people can struggle with weight management, right? And that's due to that loss or that atrophy of that skeletal muscle tissue that contributes to our overall strength. So in terms of managing your healthy weight and trying to preserve that lean muscle tissue, we know that high protein diets can be really beneficial for it. So not skipping out on those protein dense foods, like I mentioned before, your animal sources like meats, poultry, fish, or even plant-based sources like beans, nuts, and seeds too. We know that Rachel mentioned earlier how people can struggle with dysphagia, so that difficulty chewing or swallowing. So if this is something that you experience or you know someone that might be having difficulties, I always recommend working with that SLP first, so the speech language pathologist, to really improve the strength of that muscle in the mouth, and also just learn some safe swallowing strategies for chewing and swallowing. And I really like to recommend this before implementing any major diet modifications too, because I mean, hey, if I don't have to change my diet, but I can just modify the setting that it's in or how I eat certain foods, I like that plan a lot better. And then what about supplements? I know many of you might be taking certain supplements. Well, Really, there's still limited evidence to support dietary supplement usage in FSHD. And the problem that I have a lot with taking is particularly too many supplements is that the supplement industry is very loosely regulated by the FDA. So when we think about the FDA regulating drugs, right? You know, when you go to the pharmacy and you pick up a drug from the pharmacist, you're getting exactly what it says on the label, right? When you pick up a dietary supplement on the shelf, there was no verification that occurred potentially by the time of what it says on the label. So a lot of times there's some misconception of, oh, I might be taking this many units of vitamin D, but because the supplement industry is loosely regulated, you might have less than that or even 10 times more than that. It's just hard to know. And so supplement companies will do some third-party verification, and you'll see some certain labels like USP that verifies that what you see on the label is what you're getting. But again, this is just some things to keep in mind, that just taking a bunch of supplements is not always beneficial to our health too. So that's why I always like to recommend talking with your doctor or a dietitian before starting a supplement, seeing if it's appropriate for you, and then also which one is a good brand to take. Now, what's considered a healthy diet? Well, the 2020 USDA dietary guidelines for Americans emphasizes healthy eating patterns to help reduce risk for chronic diseases. So building a healthy plate is adaptable to your own personal preferences and needs. We don't need to be eating the same types of foods as the next person. This can really be adaptable to what you like and what you don't like. I like to use this visualization whenever I'm teaching people about nutrition, is to use the plate method. So with the plate method, you're going to use the following structure. You're going to fill up half of that plate with those fruits and vegetables. And really, the more vegetables, the better. And fruits too. Those are going to be those good sources of vitamins, minerals, and then even dietary fiber as well. On the next quarter of the plate is going to be those whole grains. So think about like whether it's bread, pasta, rice, etc. Choosing whole grains over refined grains is always going to be a little bit better, and it's going to have more dietary fiber and potentially better content of vitamins and minerals. And then the next quarter of the plate is going to be that healthy source of protein, like fish, poultry, beans, nuts, and as well. And like I mentioned before, I always stress drinking more water. Cheers. And then also choosing healthy sources of oils for those fats too, whether that's olive oil or canola oil, and limiting trans fats in the diet. For the purposes of time, I had some slides prepared on the Mediterranean diet, but I'm going to kind of skip through because I really want to move on to just like some practical tips that you can take home or from your home with you on how to implement some of these healthy eating strategies. So my first tip is going to be plan one day of the week to create this nutrition game plan of yours, okay? On this day, I want you to think about your week ahead. Do you have events with family, work, vacations, etc., right? Which are the days for you that are easier to shop and prepare meals at home? Now, this can be you don't have to do all your grocery shopping on one day. It can be broken up into different days of the week. Everyone has different lifestyles, different family sizes. So this is just going to be something that you might have to do some trial and error and see which works best for you. Now, I want you to think about what types of foods and recipes do you enjoy? And then you can plan your meals around weekly sales for a budget-friendly option too. So now that we've kind of like made that day, we're thinking about what we want to, when we're going to shop, what we want to shop for. So now I want you to make that grocery list and stick to it, right? When it comes to finding new, healthier recipes, there's plenty of resources online or in cookbooks too. I always like to recommend to people, keep a list of favorite foods you can refer to when you feel stuck in the kitchen. I know a lot of us can kind of experience that food fatigue where we're just like, I don't know what I want to make for dinner tonight. So having that list of favorite foods that you know it's a good recipe that you enjoy can kind of make that planning process a little bit more simpler. And then I want you to double check that those items you need with the items that you already have so you don't overbuy. And keep some basic food staples in the kitchen. So whether that's some whole grains, nuts, extra virgin olive oil, herbs and spices. And then if your grocery retailer has some options for buying in bulk, that can be another cost-saving way to save some money. My third strategy to improve your game plan is going to be think about doubling or even tripling your recipes to eat throughout the week or even freeze for later. You can use meal prep containers, as you can see on my slide here. These are really great for portioning out foods for the week, and you can reheat them later on to help decrease time in the kitchen. And these different types of containers can be found at most retailers like Amazon, Walmart, and at most local grocers too. Now, this is really great if fatigue is something that you struggle with, because that way, if you pick that one day of the week where you're feeling good, you can meal prep these foods ahead of time. And then that way, some days where you know, like, oh, I have a lot going on, I'm not going to want to eat something, you can pull it out of the refrigerator and heat it up. Now, if you make foods like chilies, soups, even fresh fruits or vegetables, you can freeze them to really decrease that time on different weeks when it comes to meal prep and planning. My fourth strategy is going to be to power up your plate with more fiber. Fiber is probably one of my favorite nutrition components of all of nutrition, because gut health is an area of that I'm interested in. And the thing about fiber is that it can really help promote bowel regularity. So preventing any constipation and even helping decrease like gas bloating too. Certain fibers can help promote satiety and even regulate cholesterol levels and blood sugar levels. So foods like oats can help with cholesterol and blood sugar. Eating a variety of fiber-rich foods is always going to be better. And those are going to come from those fruits, vegetables, legumes, peas, whole grains, nuts, and seeds. And if needed, utilize fiber supplements. If constipation is something that you struggle with. So you can work with your doctor and a dietitian to find the right one for you. There's lots of different fiber supplements on the shelves, and they contain different sources of fiber. So Benefiber is one. That's one of my favorites. Is soluble fiber that the grain is very refined, so it's mixes easily in water and it doesn't gel up. And then Citrusella is another type of insoluble fiber supplement. And I know I talked a lot about preparing meals at home, and I know that's just not always realistic for everyone tuning in. So I want you to think about when you're creating that game plan, think about, restaurants that you typically go to throughout the week. Do they have healthy options available? I always like to recommend, are there grilled or baked options available? Can you choose a side of fruit or a garden salad over fries? And take into account that plate method again. So fill half your plate with those vegetables or even fruit if they have that available. And if you're going to a restaurant that really serves larger portions, so think like Olive Garden, Cheesecake Factory, try splitting half of the entree with someone, or just take the other half home for later too. Now, I'm going to give you this example of Chick-fil-A. So I always tell people Chick-fil-A, I don't know if there's Chick-fil-A out in California, but Chick-fil-A in Florida is one of my favorite fast food restaurants to go if you want to eat healthy and make a healthy choice. And so kind of playing into some of these strategies and kind of putting it into practice. So what that might look like is some days it might just be switching from the fried nuggets and fries to maybe getting a grilled nuggets with a side salad, right? Now, I always tell people too, when it comes to making healthy food options, you don't always have to be that clean. when it comes to, or rigid even, when it comes to making that healthy choice. Some days it might just be you have a craving for fries, right? Maybe you just want those French fries, but you don't really care too much about the fried nuggets. So maybe instead your healthy choice for that day and kind of changing that eating behavior is going to be choosing the grilled nuggets with a side of fries, or maybe it's the fried nuggets with a side salad, right? It doesn't have to be always all or nothing when it comes to making a healthy eating choice, okay? And then lastly, I just kind of have like an example weekly meal structure that I might do for myself, or when I'm working with someone in practice, I might kind of help them guide through. So, you know, putting these things into practice when you're creating that plan for the day, I always just say, write out the days of the week and then write down like that breakfast, lunch, snacks, and dinner. And then that way you can kind of create this better visual for yourself on how to utilize leftovers and then plan for eating out. So, you know, this is not just all eating from home, right? You can still plan eating out with friends, family, or just kind of days that you know you're busy and you're not going to be able to do too much from home. So this is just kind of one example for everyone. And then what I'll do is I will end with some healthy recipes you can try. I'm just going to kind of blow through this because I know we're getting a little bit over time. But the first recipe I have is a Mediterranean mixed greens salad with grilled chicken. And then the other recipe I have is a neuro berry smoothie. So with the Mediterranean style recipe, I love it because it is high in antioxidants that come from those kale, olive oil, lemon juice, and pistachios, and healthy fats too. And it combines healthy sources of protein, fats, and fiber, and it really will help us keeping us full longer in the day. So I can make sure that the FSHD Society has this recipe for everyone, since I know I'm going to kind of go through this quick. But essentially, it's going to be a mixture of kale, arugula, olive oil, lemon juice, pistachios, black pepper, Parmesan, and then baked chicken cut into strips. If you're a vegan or a vegetarian, you can choose tempeh or tofu as that protein option and leave out the Parmesan cheese. So this recipe is really simple. You don't have to overcomplicate it. So in a large salad bowl, you're just going to combine that kale, oil, lemon juice, and black pepper, and you're going to massage those kale leaves with your hands and let it rest for about 15 seconds. And what that lemon juice does is help break down the rigidness of the salad and make it a little bit softer and easier to chew. Afterwards, you'll add in that arugula, pistachios, and Parmesan, and then you're going to divide the salad in two, add your protein option, and enjoy. So then lastly, that neuro berry smoothie recipe I mentioned is gonna, if you have a blender at home, I really love this recipe because it's a really good healthy meal replacement. So if anyone has any difficulty chewing or swallowing, this could be a great meal replacement for you. I always like to say that you want the best bang for your bite because you don't know how many bites you're gonna get if you struggle with dysphagia. So this is going to be 1 cup of berries, 1 cup of strawberries, a few handfuls of spinach, walnuts, yogurt, a type of milk or milk alternative, and half a scoop of chocolate protein powder. And again, this recipe is really simple too. So you're going to use a blender to combine the frozen berries, strawberries, spinach, walnuts, yogurt, and milk, and blend it until smooth and incorporated. And then at the end, you'll incorporate that half scoop of protein powder to mix until combined. And when you add the protein powder at the end, it helps it from expanding and increasing in volume where it might change the taste when it's overmixed. And then pour into a glass and enjoy.